Welcome to the Gritty Nurse Podcast, the Halloween edition. You can listen to this podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Google Play, iTunes, and iHeartRadio. You can follow the Gritty Nurses on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Subscribe to be a Patreon member to show your support and shop at Gritty Nurse Apparel for your nursing fashion needs. Now, let me take you to a place so horrifying. You will be terrified for shifts to come, and you will think twice about closing your eyes on nights. This episode we call Welcome to Hell Hospital.
All right, so we are here for Ghost Stories Part 2. We have lots of
Yes.
stories coming your way. Hopefully you were able to listen to the first part and continue on with this series. Just wanted to talk a little bit about ghosts in general and why people sort of find them so fascinating. So I think people have encountered ghosts throughout history. Ghosts are generally believed to be people or spirits that have died. They may appear as translucent shapes or figures. They may also be mistaken for living people. In some cases, they cannot be seen but may be heard, smelled, or felt. They may also manipulate objects, for example, moving them or turning machines on or off. And there's different theories as to why ghosts exist. So they may be present because of a particularly strong tie to a location, object, or person. Unfinished business may prevent them from moving on to the afterlife. A ghost may sort of be stuck between this world and the next as punishment for their actions taken in life, and they may return with messages for the living.
All right. So this week, as opposed to telling you some of my own ghost stories, I've actually found some on the internet that were pretty creepy. So I have this, they're actually all really short. So maybe I'll read one at a time. And I actually do have one of my own personal ones again. So maybe, depending on time, I'll maybe throw that one in, of course, because, my ghost stories are like super scary. Anyways, this particular nursing story is called I'm Okay. One night I had to write down each patient's name when I spotted a patient that I had not seen for a couple weeks. I felt weird when I was about to think that he had been transferred to our surgical hospital. This one patient, he looked at me in the eyes and smiled as I gave him a gesture as if everything was fine. It was a relief seeing him in his best look from what I remember. However, when putting pen to my notes, I could not find his name on the patient census. I looked him up by name and I was amazed to see that he had died 2 days earlier. It was like he came back to me to say that he was fine. Dun dun dun.
So creepy.
Super creepy.
I don't know what to make
Oh my
of that.
gosh.
That is really, really weird. There are actually a lot of stories I came across like that as well. And me being the realist that I am, I'm like, what happens right now with video monitoring systems? And like, could we actually verify what happened by looking at the video feed? But I know that kind of disrupts the whole story theme. But I know with these stories, you can't prove anything that happens. So you kind of just need to go on what people are saying. And I do believe some of them are true, but I kind of wonder also like, oh, is it possible that like there was a video feed going somewhere and we could like actually see what happened? But I know you can't.
Probably not, no.
All of my stories actually are from the same hospital. At this particular hospital, there is a well-known ghost called Sister Vincenza, who actually worked at the hospital for 28 years as nursing supervisor of obstetrics. And she had a reputation for being intimidating but also caring deeply about her patients. She passed away in 1958, and beginning in 1965 until now, Sister Vinny has been seen by numerous hospital staff and patients. She is known to place blankets on new moms, rearrange med carts, turn lights on and off. She is usually seen faceless, dressed in all white, and it's the location of the old maternity ward.
Yeah, that's really, really creepy.
But can you imagine if you were a new mom and somebody put a blanket on you, but you were really tired or you weren't paying attention, and then the nurse comes in and, you tell her, like, thanks for the blanket, and she's like, I didn't do that. I didn't put a blanket on you. And then you're thinking, who the hell was that?
Nope, that'd be it for me. I'd be like, it's time to go home. I can't manage this. I can't deal with this stress.
Or if you just had a C-section though and you literally can't go anywhere and then you're stuck there for like another night or so.
Yeah, that would really suck. Oh my goodness. So I have another one. This one's called Out of the Window. I was working on a night shift when a call light goes off for room 30. So that's kind of typical, right?
Mm-hmm.
For all I know, this room has no one in it, so I canceled the light from the desk, but it wouldn't cancel. I walked down to the room just to check. Upon entering the room, I heard a loud, like a knocking sound on the window, like something or someone was trying to get out. Knowing what might be happening, I took up all the courage I could and I took a deep breath. I opened the lights and walked towards the window and opened it. I felt weird because a soft breeze went by and flew by me and then out of the window. I later found out that a patient had died during the morning, and apparently the nurses before my shift didn't open the window. Weird as it may sound, when someone passes, let them go and open the room's windows.
That is scary, except in most hospitals I've been in, you can't open the window.
Nope. But I mean, you know what would have made that story scarier? Let's say they worked on, like, this is my like little creative mind going, let's say they worked on like a psych ward or whatever, right? And you know, like those newer builds, they have those outdoor terrace.
Yeah.
So let's say, you know, like this story maybe actually took place on a mental health ward and a patient escaped and then they like jumped over the terrace, and maybe you were actually, you know, doing some work, or maybe you're going out on the terrace for your shift and you heard like some creepy things. But I guess people wouldn't do that at night, would they?
Who knows? People might do that for all we know. I don't know if the terrace is blocked off for certain hours. I actually don't know.
Well, who knows? Like, I mean, I could only imagine how creepy it would be, like if you were out there by yourself and then all of a sudden like you saw the door open and felt a cool breeze as something like went past you over the building, and it's like, oh no, like maybe that's the apparition reliving its whole like turmoil self of like just jumping out. And I don't know, I'm just making shit up now.
Well, you know what? I just thought of something. So at one of the hospitals I used to work at, it was connected to another hospital with an underground tunnel. So if you had to transfer a patient from our hospital to the one across the street, you had to go through this underground tunnel rather than crossing like 4 lanes of traffic or whatever. So I had to transfer a patient once, and it is creepy down there. It's like the bowels of the hospital. It's like the sub floor, and you go down this tunnel, and it's like, I mean, as far as the eye can see, it's like a straight hallway, right? And there's sort of those lights. I don't know if you know when you do construction, right? Those lights that are kind of hung up on the ceiling by like...
Yeah, I know.
You know, like, yeah. So it's like that, and then it's like creaky down there, and the heating is all weird. And I think maybe at one point in that whole hallway, there is like a single phone, like an emergency kind of phone that you could use if you needed help.
No.
And phones don't work down there because it's so far below. Like they might, but it doesn't pick up very well. And I remember pushing an admission down there, like when I worked in the NICU, and I thought, like, if something happened, I don't know what I would do. Like, which way would I go? Would I just keep running until I got to the other end of the hallway? Would I turn around? Like, what would I even do if something happened? Like, if this baby started to code, I don't even know what I would do. Like, it's me and one other person that's transferring the baby. And I thought, like, this could be the site of a lot of ghost stories that nobody would even know about.
Yeah,
because it's so isolated down there.
Yeah, like I always find those corridors really creepy, right? Like if you're down there by yourself and like let's say you are on nights and you're going from one building to the other or whatever the case may be, it's just the whole vibe is really creepy, right? So I get it. Oh, this one's called Bless You. So it begins with, I worked the night shift alone at one of the oldest nursing homes while in college. I got a lot of stories to tell you, but this one really changed my spunky attitude. I was about to get an extra linen in a room, and I sneezed, and from behind me, clear as day, I heard, bless you. The feeling of it was that I was about to start a prayer, and to my surprise, a voice whispered near my ear, Our Father in heaven.
Oh my God.
From then on, I used to stop myself from sneezing, and I never recited the Lord's Prayer for quite some time. Oh no, that's really messed up.
And the creepiest thing is it was right near her ear.
Yeah, no, that's where you feel the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, and you just like you're frozen, like you just can't move, right?
You're frozen or
Oh,
you just bolt out of there.
that's
Like a bat
messed
out
up.
of hell. Okay, I have a story that happened a few years ago in an ICU unit. So they were expecting an admission, and in the process of preparing the bed, the cardiac monitor they put on standby mode. But no sooner after this was done did the sounds of a heartbeat start coming from it, and everybody could hear. So this spooked the RN enough to change the spot, like the sensor, I guess. And
no.
they suspected the monitor has some kind of recording device installed in it, and assumed that the sounds were a result of it malfunctioning. However, this person discovered they were wrong when they bumped into engineering one evening and they came to fix another monitor. They were told that one should never hear the sounds of a heart rhythm unless the monitor is actually hooked up to a patient or a simulator. So they couldn't
Yikes.
explain where this heartbeat sound was coming from. And I can only think that it was picking up some other being or spirit. Like if you've ever worked with
That's
heart monitors,
really
you know
creepy.
that it doesn't pick up sound unless it's actually in full contact with like a body part, and it usually needs to be pretty close to your
Right.
heart. So I can't explain that either.
That's super creepy. I think the part about like these scary movies and these scary things that happen is, for the most part, like there's always some form of silence involved. Like you walk into a room, it's nice and quiet, and there's some noise that is unexpected or shouldn't really be there, right? And it's just kind of like that's and because you know it's abnormal, you're like, what is going on? I don't know. Like I just I mean, I never liked working nights anyways. I was always like, fine, I'll trade your day. I'll take your day if you don't want it. But yeah, that stuff is like super duper creepy.
Mm-hmm.
So I have another story, and this one is I'm diverging a little bit from my ghost stories here. This was one actually, like my mom had listened to the podcast, and she's like, "Oh, Amy, you forgot to mention this hospital ghost story," and I totally forgot about it. And so I thought I would bring it to you guys this week. But essentially, when my grandfather was sick, he was at an older hospital. I almost said the name of it, but he was staying in a hospital that no longer exists. But he was in a ward room because he was palliative, and there were 3 other gentlemen that were sharing the room with him. And I am trying to remember his name. Oh my God, what's this guy's name? Anyways, I can't remember his name, but let's call him Mr. Brown. And he was, so like I said, it was a ward room. And so let's say you walked right in. To the left would have been my grandfather, and then immediately beside him would have been Mr. Brown, and there were 2 other gentlemen in front of him. And over the time, obviously, with how palliative care works, patients would die. So I think the first person who died was like a gentleman that was like directly across the way from my grandfather. And of course, we spent over 8 months there, so we got to
Oh
know a lot
wow.
of the residents very well. Yeah. So this one gentleman died, and actually, I think like either my mom or I found him and was like, "Oh, vital signs absent." They
Are
all
you
came in and
serious?
like took him away. Yeah, like I think I just because like we were like we had known and seen these people for so long, so like sometimes we'd go over and we would talk to the other families, and we're in a ward room, right? So you kind of get to know everybody's story and why people are there. And so that guy passed away, and essentially the other guy passed away that was in the bed next to him eventually. And then it was really like my grandfather and Mr. Brown. Let's call him Mr. Brown, whatever. And I think Mr. Brown had something in related to, I don't know what, I can't remember what he was palliative for, but there was something. Him and my grandfather would always get into these spats, right? It was
Are you
actually really
serious?
funny.
Like even as
Yeah.
palliative old men, they're fighting about things.
Yeah, they'd always be at each other. And Mr. Brown, he had like a cane or whatever. And I remember one time I was in there and he like hit his cane between my legs and my grandpa like lost his grab. He's like, "You don't do that to my granddaughter." Like it was amazing. So eventually like they became better friends, but like I think I can't remember if he had like severe dementia or something, but he was getting sicker as time went on too. So we knew it was probably like Mr. Brown's time was kind of coming around the corner. And I remember, I think I came in one day, and my grandfather was like, "Oh, he's lost it today. He's going today." And I was like, "What?" And we went over, and he looked really sick, and I was just like, "Oh no! Like, what the hell is going on?" And I think very shortly after that, Mr. Brown had passed on, and I was like, "Oh, like." That's like really sad, like, because now there was really like nobody else in this room with my grandfather. Like all the people that were there before him, but it was also really weird that like he had known that something was going to happen with him. So I was kind of like, oh, that's super strange. So anyways, I think that day we had gotten in and Mr. Brown had passed, and we didn't actually get to see him, but my grandfather was still saying that Mr. Brown's fighting with him every night. And I'm like, "Oh, what do you mean?" And he's like, "He comes, he's trying to take my sheets off, he's pissing me off." And I'm like, "Grandpa, like, Mr. Brown is not here, he's gone." He's like, "No, every night he comes, he's like that bastard, he's making all these noises, he's ruffling my sheets." I'm like, "No, like, he's not here." And my grandfather was freaking me out. I'm like, maybe it's just because like he's old and he's dying that he's starting to see stuff.
Right. That's what I'm thinking.
So I think we got into our car or whatever. I think we were done our visit with my grandfather, and we were driving, and this smell came into the car. So this is where, like, you know how like you were reading about some of the weird things. So like this, it was like sulfur. And of course, now in hindsight, thinking about what it probably was, you probably went over like, you know, like a grate or something. And that's where the sulfur smell came from. But anyways, so all of a sudden the car started smelling like sulfur, right? And my mom was just like, "Get out of here, Mr. Brown." And I was just like, "What's happening?" And she's like cursing me. She's like, "You get out of my car in Jesus' name." And I was like, "Oh," I was like so scared. I was just like, "Oh no." She's like, "We need to make sure that we don't bring any of these dead people home with us."
Oh my god, your mom is hilarious.
Yeah, I was so scared. I was like, "Oh no."
Well, just think back, right? So this is after you had your whole incident with your house, right? And she had gotten someone to like rid your house of the spirit. So maybe she was just taking a piece of that lady and applying it to this situation.
But this is the thing. So like, as I was telling you, like my grandpa was saying that like he was seeing him.
Yeah.
So as time went on, I guess my grandpa was getting sicker as well, but he would say things that were like really weird. Like we'd be there and we'd be with him, and he's like, "Oh, I just had a visit from this person." We're like, "No." And he's like, "I'm sure they were here." We're like, "No, Grandpa, like that person's been dead for like a really long time." He's like, "Oh, well, he was here and visited me." I'm like, "Oh my god." Like, what do you mean he was here and he visited you? And then I think actually, so the day before he died, he was waiting for my grandma to come up from Florida. So she had come up, and we all knew kind of like his time was coming, and it was almost like he waited for her.
Right.
And he was telling us kind of how like, you know, like he was seeing all these people that were deceased, and then literally like my grandma showed up and he died the next day. Like he just waited for her, wanted to see her, and then like the next day he passed. But it just gives you the creeps, right? Because it's like, can when you're dying, you start connecting with those people who have passed on? Do you actually start seeing more phenomena? Like, for example, that, you know, he is palliative. Maybe Mr. Brown was coming and messing with him. Like, I don't know. Right?
It's just really, it seemed really realistic the way that you described it, like how he was ruffling his sheets and he was getting all mad about it and having
he was
had no idea that he passed away.
But this is the thing, like I think what made it really scary for us and kind of creepy for us was like my grandpa was a sensible guy, right? He was a World War II veteran. He was very well spoken. He didn't have issues with dementia. So it's not even like I could say, okay, that's the factor. Like, it's just the fact that, his dementia is making him see things. He was like, this guy is messing with me at night and it's not cool. And I was just like, oh God, oh no, I hope it's not true. But like, who knows? Maybe as you get older, sicker, or you're palliative, you get more sensitive to these other things. I don't know.
Well, it's funny how you mentioned that your grandpa and this Mr. Brown guy were fighting a lot, because the same thing happened to my grandma when she moved to the nursing home. Like, her and her first roommate were fighting about who got to put their plant on the windowsill. Like honestly, is this what it comes down to when you're that old? It's like, you each have a plant, you each have a windowsill, or let's divide it in half. Can we do that, please, and just work together? And
Divide and conquer the windowsill.
She did tell us a scary story, though. She said that she'd be sleeping and she kept seeing her roommate like standing over her bed, and
Oh, God,
she
no.
says that her roommate stuffed Kleenex into her mouth one night because
What?
yeah, because she was snoring too loud, and she's like, she's trying to kill me, and she was like crying. She was so upset.
Oh,
But we didn't know.
no.
We didn't know if it was true or not, because none of us had seen this other lady do that. And now that we're talking about it, I'm like, maybe it wasn't the roommate. Maybe it was like a spirit that lived there before her and wanted her bed back or something. I don't really know. But anyway, she thought my grandma was like, someone is trying to kill me. I need to get out of this room. So because
no.
my aunt was on the board of whatever, she was like sitting on the board, they were able to pull some strings and put her into another room. But it is not uncommon, though, for nursing home residents to fight about stupid stuff. And just because you're a certain age doesn't mean it ends. Just because you're not physically able to like hurt someone, it doesn't end. I hope that doesn't become you or I one day, but you never know.
I'm like, Sarah, get me that. That's my plant.
That's my knitting needle, damn it. I'm gonna choke you.
Oh my God, that'd be the day, right?
I'm gonna try to choke you with yarn.
Oh my God. Oh no. Do you actually have any more ghost stories? I think I have a couple more, but they're all so short.
I have one that's a little bit longer. I could read this
Okay.
one.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay. So about 3 years ago, on an overnight shift, working as a porter, I took a break in the waiting room. I had just finished a morgue call by myself and couldn't help but reminisce about a ghost story that a friend had recounted to me earlier in the week. I was feeling a little freaked out and wanted to calm myself down. So I turned on the TV to take my mind elsewhere. Alone in the room, all the doors shut and lights off except for the TV, I took a seat to relax. Within moments, this kitchen sink was on full blast and I froze. There was nobody else in there who could have turned it on. I couldn't move for a while and was just in shock until I calmed myself down. About 10 minutes later, I was finally able to get up and remove myself from the room. I turned off the TV and on my way out physically turned off the tap, which was on full blast the whole time. I forget which temperature it was, hot or cold, but my one eerie experience working in that hospital. When I think about it today, I feel that someone was telling me not to be scared as my thoughts about ghosts were fresh on my mind. Someone or something at that hospital was looking out for me. So,
Yikes.
I think the kitchen sink, though, coming on is really weird, because even if someone was trying to prank you, I don't even know how they would do that.
No, that's
knocking sounds or the TV going on or off. Maybe someone could have another remote, but the kitchen sink just going on full blast is really unusual.
Yeah, that's like, I would just, yeah. Well, at least now we have the, you see, I'm even thinking about, it wouldn't be so scary because we have those taps that are automated. Could you imagine if it just wouldn't turn off?
Oh, that is, no. That would be a nightmare, because I think at some point, especially in the older hospitals, wouldn't the sink just start to overflow and you have no way of stopping the water? And at that hour, are you going to be able to get engineering or someone to come?
Probably not. Yikes. All right, hold on. I have one more here, if I can get it to load. This one's called The Vanishing Girl. I was a new nurse at our hospital and had only been working there for a couple of months. I had brought a patient of mine up to day surgery from the ER for an endoscopy and called back down And they called back down and asked me to bring her family up because she only spoke Italian and not enough English, and they needed someone to consent her for the procedure. After dropping them off, I walked past the waiting room to head back to the hall to the elevators. I took the back way to get to the ER, and the hallways are always deserted. It used to be the pediatric wing of the hospital, but that is all shut down for years, and the rooms were just empty and full of broken equipment and beds and crap. As I reached the old nurses' station at the T-junction between the pediatric hallway in the hallway that goes to the elevators, I saw a little girl standing across from the nursing station further down the hall. She had big pigtails and was wearing a brown dress, white shoes, and holding a teddy bear. I thought perhaps that she was a family member who had walked away from the day surgery waiting room. I was concerned that she would go to one of the rooms and get hurt or lost, so I said, "Hey little girl, what are you doing? You don't need to be over there, you're just going to get hurt." And I walked around the nursing station to grab her hand to bring her back. I shit you not, she vanished as I got about 15 feet away from her. Oh my god, no! Every hair on my body stood up straight, and I turned and I ran like a bat out of hell down the elevator. I pounded that button for what seemed like an eternity until the elevator got to the floor. I got back to the ER, I walked up to the nurse's desk with white as a sheet, and one of the older nurses just looked at me and said, "Jesus Christ, what's wrong with you?" I remember babbling like an idiot as I tried to tell them what happened. After listening to me for a moment or two, the nurse said, "Oh, you saw that lost little girl ghost. She's been around here for years." And I remember saying, "Well, thanks for telling me about it before this." Apparently, the ghost has been seen down in the ER, ducking in and out of patients' room and peeking out and around curtains. My wife worked up on the 7th floor, and she said that one time on nights, a whole row of patients' rooms started yelling about a little girl that was running in and out of the rooms. I guess she gets around.
That is the best
Yikes.
story. That is the best story. I feel like we should end here because I can't top that.
Oh no. That is super creepy. If I saw some little girl like ducking in and out of my room, I'd be like, "Get out!"
Well, it's the creepiest thing where they already knew about that girl. So even though, I mean, she had her own story, and then they already knew that exact same girl that she was talking about. So it's not like, like even if she made up a story, it couldn't have been the same story that they were thinking of. So I think that
Seriously?
is the creepiest story.
Oh no, I have one more creepy one.
Okay.
This one's called "Don't Let Them Take Me." It's very short though. The best I heard was from a nurse who said that one night she floated to oncology at the hospital that she used to work at. She was given a patient who was going to be passing away and had been unconscious for several days. At one point during the night, the nurse went into the room and the patient was sitting up in the bed looking at the corner of the room. He looked at her and said, "Please, please, don't let them take me." The nurse was freaked out and asked who was going to take the patient. And he pointed at a black thing up in the corner of the room. He started to scream, and then the patient died within minutes. Oh my god.
Oh, Amie, you actually took the story I was literally going to tell, and I was like, no, I'm not going to tell it, but the way you told it, I think that's just... Can you imagine this actually being a scene in a movie? Like...
Yes,
person
it'd be something straight out of a horror movie, like some creepy dark apparition standing there like with long fingers, be like and like taking the person away. Oh no.
It's always some black thing or black smoke. It's some black unknown being, and it's like floating around. Like, did you ever watch Lost? It's like this black monster, and it makes this weird clicking sound. Yeah.
Oh no, yeah. I haven't. I could never get into the Lost series, to be honest.
Oh, Amie, you just went down 5 points in my book. That is one of my favorite series. Except that I don't like how it ended, but I like the whole series a lot. It's okay.
All right. Well, maybe one of these days I will sit and I will watch them.
No, you don't have to. It's okay. It's just a difference of opinion.
I'm trying to think why I didn't get into it. What was going on?
Was it just too weird? Were there too many storylines for you?
I think I watched like the first season and I was kind of like, it wasn't really maybe my cup of tea. Maybe I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was another show. I feel like I was watching Dexter at the time.
Oh, you know what? That's one of those shows that I really liked, but I also don't like how that series ended.
Oh, it ended horribly, but
Yes, at
we
least we
won't
can agree on
get
that.
into
We
that.
won't we
It
won't.
ended horribly.
Yes, I all I will say is that there was a really weird and inappropriate storyline. I think you know what I'm talking about. That I did not
Yes.
appreciate, and I'm like, why did they have to throw this wrench into this story? Like, it was a really good show, and then I'm like, you know how shows should just end on a high note instead of ending like, what is happening? Why are we even having this last season kind of thing?
Well, it got to a point like where he had this like really bizarre relationship, and
Hmm.
like I just I couldn't stand the person he was seeing, and I was just like, this is bizarre. And then she was annoying, and I was like, oh my god, he should just kill her because he's a serial killer. It just I don't know.
And
It was
apparently
awful.
in real life, they were married, right? Like Dexter and Deborah.
Yes, they were.
And then they got divorced. And maybe that's why it started going downhill.
Yeah, because it got awkward.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh dear. Well, I think that might be the conclusion of our haunted horror stories for part 2. You guys are listening will have to tell us which ones were scarier, the first ones or the second ones.
And hopefully you don't have any creepy encounters of your own working over Halloween, but if you do, please share them with us.
Yeah, let us know. Let us know if you see like that creepy clown or that red balloon coming down the hallway at you or something.
Oh
We
god.
want to know. Or the
Okay.
creepy
Take care
black figure
everyone.
with long fingers. Bye.
Bye.
So just remember, we have our Gritty Nurse apparel line. You can find us at www.grittynurse.com. Please join the conversation, make a statement, and subscribe and go to our website.
And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or any other podcast listening platform, be sure to hit subscribe so you can get updates to when we release episodes. Also, be sure to rate and review us. You can also find us on Patreon. We are at Patreon at the Gritty Nurse Podcast. We just wanted to let you know that any donation you make, however big or small, is going towards supporting our monthly podcast costs, which include podcast hosting, our website, audio equipment that we use, and also the time and energy it takes us to research and put out good quality episodes for you guys. Thanks.